Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Finance and Appropriations Subcommittee on Economic Development and Natural Resources. If we could start out, let's have our members that are here introduce themselves. I think we'll be joined by others in a few moments.
Hi,
Senator
I'm
Barker.
Senator George Barker, representing parts of Alexandria, Fairfax, and Prince William.
Damn it.
Oh, did you go?
No. Working our way
We're working
here.
our way around Indiana. Emmett Hanger from Augusta County.
Frank Ruff, Southern Virginia.
And down on the end, our staff member.
Jason Powell, staff, Senate Finance Appropriations Committee.
Thank you so much. And I'm Senator Dave Marsden from Fairfax County. It's good to be here, and we're off and running. The first up on our agenda is our new Secretary of Commerce and Trade, Karen Merricks. Karen, how about having a seat at the table here and tell us about yourself, especially Virginia Ready, which very relevant to the problems we're having related to the COVID and employment and what have you. We're interested to hear that, a little bit about yourself and what some of your plans are for your secretariat.
Good morning. Good morning, Senator Marsden and committee. It's so delightful to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I've met with some of you one-on-one already, and I'm looking forward to working with you over the next 4 years in a highly collaborative fashion. I come from a rural family by way of my background. I am the first woman in my family to earn a college degree. I put myself through college first by going to community college and then graduating from a university. Since that time, I have started and grown a number of businesses. One of them, we started with 2 people, and we grew it to 1,100 people. So I've had an opportunity to think about what does it take to start and grow a business? What does it take to create a culture where you're delivering valuable products and services? What does it take to develop a talented workforce in partnership with a variety of stakeholders? I've also been an investor here in Virginia for a variety of Virginia companies. And I've been a public company board member serving on the audit committee and chairman of the valuations committee. So I understand business from an early stage entrepreneur to an early stage investor to a leader governing businesses. And so I'm bringing all of this experience here in my new role as Secretary of Commerce and Trade. Also, in the past 2 years, I was the founding CEO of an organization called the Virginia Ready Initiative. This organization was actually co-founded by our governor and his wife in response to the massive unemployment due to COVID. And so what we did is we took a look at what was happening, who was unemployed or whose employment had been disrupted. And then we also took a look at the same time what businesses had open jobs. And there were literally thousands and thousands of jobs that were open during the pandemic. So we thought, how can we train Virginians for these jobs that are open? And we went looking for a training partner, and we discovered the Fast Forward program in the Virginia Community College system. All 23 campuses or colleges offer this program. And so what we did is we created this public-private partnership, business-led. We raised $10 million from Virginia businesses. And we went and formed a partnership with the Virginia Community College system such that Virginians who take one of 34 credentialed courses in demand industries, they would receive abundant tuition assistance from the current program, and we would offer a $1,000 Credential Achievement Award. And so these credential programs were in manufacturing and skilled trades, healthcare, cyber, and information technology. And in less than 18 months, we had 3,500 Virginians enrolling in courses that we supported. And about 1,000 of them have finished already, and they have jobs with Virginia businesses. So our companies that were the partners, they post their jobs at a jobs board. And we helped to provide career readiness services, and we also helped match them with jobs. So we believe that this model of having a business-led public-private partnership, leveraging the strengths of the Virginia Community College system across Virginia, is something that we would like to invest more in. Now, I'm no longer the CEO. We have a new leader there. I left that position in order to come here to be Secretary of Commerce and Trade. But I will say, as someone who attended a community college, as someone who received a Pell Grant, as someone who received great training, I believe that we have an opportunity here to help solve our labor shortage. And this is going to be a key part of what our governor and his cabinet will do working with you all, is help to solve this labor shortage using some of our existing assets and supporting them and investing in these assets like the community college system, but having businesses at the table working very closely with the community college system to ensure that Virginians are getting these skills that they need.
Thank you very much. That's very impressive. Could you tell us a little bit about the team you have assembled at the Secretariat to carry out your mission?
Yes, that's a great question. Well, with me today is the Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Garrison Coward. And Garrison comes with a lot of experiences, both in the private sector and in the Virginia system here. And I am also making a point to recruit people from rural Virginia and Southwest Virginia. We just hired someone who is now the Deputy Secretary at Virginia Energy, Will Clear. I'm also looking at the folks that we have in this Secretariat. There's over 1,700 people that report into this Secretariat. And so I'm identifying our top talent, and I'll just give you a heads up that I will be asking people from within the Secretariat to form SWAT teams to come in and help us accelerate our site development so that we can win businesses to expand or relocate here. I'm going to be going into the Secretariat and identifying people who are agile, who are imaginative, and who can help us achieve our very ambitious goals of 400,000 jobs and 10,000 startups.
Okay, that's great. You know, we during the previous administration, Governor Northam had the 3G program, you know, in our community colleges. Does that work with the kind of career development that you've been involved in with Virginia Ready?
I think the 3G program, get a skill, get a job, give back, is imaginative. And it's something that we need to incent people to consider these in-demand fields and to help them to achieve that. I will say, since I have you all as an audience, that often these programs are funded, but there are parameters around the funding such that the community college system doesn't have the adequate manpower and woman power to get the job done. So there are bottlenecks because in the community college system, there are so many sources of funding. And the funding is essential, but that funding also needs to include people to get the job done, marketing, to promote the program, to go into the communities in an imaginative way because there's so many programs. And I will say that when we were starting up the Virginia Ready Initiative, we intentionally stayed out of the tuition piece because there's a lot of complicated funding formulas, and people who have to review these funding formulas at the community college system are already under-resourced. And so I would say, since I have an audience with you, if I were the chancellor of the VCCS, I'd be meeting with you all and saying, how can we better form the legislation such that it empowers our folks to get the job done? We have such a terrible labor shortage right now, and yet we have all of these capable Virginians from throughout our state, and we need to encourage them to get these skills and to transform their career trajectory, their families, their communities.
That sounds great. Anything that can streamline a program like that, make it easier for people to access and easier to manage through the existing college resources would be great to have fresh eyes to come in and look at that and see how that would work. Are any questions from our committee members? Senator Ruff.
Mr. Chairman, Karen, welcome. Have you had a chance to focus on the ports yet and how important they are to all of Virginia?
I have had initial briefings on the ports. They are a treasure. They're a huge asset. Actually, Christy and I are meeting later this week with the head of the ports. I believe that we need to consider a greater investment in manufacturing around the ports. And so our ports are good at moving goods, but we also want to produce goods near the ports. And so, yes, that'll be a priority for me.
Any questions?
Yes, I met a couple of weeks ago, before the inauguration with the governor up in McLean, had a little family restaurant there, so it's not far from where you live. But one of the things we talked about there was how we get Virginia established as a place where people want to live, because a lot of the issues that we've had have been, we have businesses that have ideas that almost certainly would be productive and profitable, but often we don't have the workforce here, even with our high education system, et cetera. And we see some of that in Northern Virginia, in the the tech industry, that type of thing. That I've had several people tell me we could do a lot of things, but we don't have the workforce here that we're able to get, and part of it is that we've had a loss of population in between 2013 and 2020, and most of the counties in Virginia have decreased in population, not increased. So I know most of that was pre-pandemic. It wasn't just pandemic related. So can you talk a little bit about sort of what we can do, what you think we can do to be able to build that workforce and make Virginia a place where people are sort of looking to move to, from whether it's New York or California or Texas or whatever. So
Yes, yes, Senator, we did lose at least 100,000 people during that time frame that you describe. And we recently had a cabinet retreat where we started to outline what our goals are. One of those goals is to better understand who's leaving and why. We know veterans are leaving as well. And to develop a program and a campaign to bring people into Virginia. And that would be, we would like to bring people into Virginia with the skills that Virginia companies also need. And the whole workforce piece, which I just spoke about, is a top priority for us. In addition to building building out and building on the good work that's been done in broadband to help everyone have access to that universal access, and also housing. So when we look at the reasons why companies don't pick Virginia and they pick some of our competing states, these are all components: housing for their workforce, skills for their workforce, broadband has also been an issue. So we're looking at these components that we want to build upon. We recognize that there's been a lot of good work done, and what we want to bring to the table is a sense of urgency and a willingness to navigate what those barriers are and help to remove what those barriers are through a variety of strategies and tactics.
very good, thank you.
Well, that's workforce development and the mysteries that seems to surround our worker shortage. You hear all kinds of different theories about people re-examining their lives and trying to change careers. Others who are frightened of COVID, which Lord knows I hope is beginning to subside here in the Commonwealth, as it appears to be in some other countries around the world and in some states. And it's it is going to be a challenge in this time. One of the things, just some simple things. I'm working on a bill right now to reduce the requirements of getting a barber's license or cosmetology license from 1,500 to 1,000 hours. It's too long, it's too expensive, and hair cuttery has already gone out of business. It had to be sold to a holding company. They're still around, but they couldn't get enough workers. It's even simple things, like that removing those regulatory barriers where they make sense to do. And one question I had, the governor has proposed somewhere in the neighborhood of 3.2, north of $3 billion in cuts and spending. Have you been asked to put together your share of that through the Secretariat to come up with ways of meeting his financial goals?
Yes, I will say I wholeheartedly agree, and the governor wholeheartedly agrees with your first comment on reducing regulations and making it easier for people to start, grow a business, or get a job. So we would like to work very closely with you on that, and there are people within the Secretariat and in the Department of Labor who are working on that now. And yes, we have been asked to review the budget and to offer our ideas, and that's very much in process. We're working as quickly as we can on that.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Senator Hanger.
Well, I certainly appreciate your seeming understanding of the community college system and some emphasis on that. I think that we do have a good community college system, and they're capable of doing a lot and are doing a lot. One of the, when we talk about recruiting businesses here, I guess my inclination is that, and I think you've alluded to that, helping people build small businesses and they grow into big businesses. A lot of the game has been attracting the big fish. We spend a lot of money on that. And generally when we don't get it, it was because somebody was willing to pay more, for them to come to Mississippi or Tennessee or North Carolina as opposed to coming to Virginia. We've been very successful with data centers as an example because we cut a sweet deal. And so we're getting lots of data centers. So I guess I appreciate what you're coming from, and I hope that the emphasis will be on helping those existing businesses grow and developing opportunities for people to be entrepreneurs as opposed to always going after the big fish. And actually I would share I have a little hesitancy, and I may be the only one at the table that's in this posture of spending the huge dollars for these mega sites. There's a lot of competition for those, and we need to facilitate the competition there. But that upfront investment troubles me sometimes because the return on investment sometimes isn't there. We had an opportunity one time to get a Toyota plant, and they went to Mississippi, and then after they spent a lot of money, it sat idle for several years. Doing okay now, but I guess that's just a consideration of mine. That in evaluating those projects, when you spend the upfront money as opposed to just natural growth from within.
Appreciate that. And small businesses are where most of the jobs are cumulatively. And I come from a family of small business owners. I will say with those mega sites, when they work, they create a whole ecosystem of small businesses as well. But we need to be very thoughtful.
Sure.
We need to
And
be
I guess
thoughtful.
the point I would make along with that is the leading economic drivers, as you know, in Virginia are agriculture, forestry, tourism. And so when you come in with a mega site, you have to be careful about how you're changing the environment, I guess is what I would say. Because, my point has been, and you were with our rural caucus the other day, is to build on our strengths in rural areas as opposed to turning rural areas into urban areas. My thinking.
Senator Ruff.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To return to the community college issue, I think that one of the problems that they have had in really developing programs to the point that we want them to be is that they have to live within a structure of their, if you can't pay a trainer more than you pay a professor that's had 15 years experience, because somebody's going to get mad. So I think that we're going to have to figure out how we can get businesses to agree to partner with the community college to pick up some of that salary. And I think that may be one challenge that you could take on and be successful, because I believe that there are businesses that would do it.
I think you're absolutely right. I appreciate you raising that. I think of it as the education supply chain, and one of the bottlenecks right now is the number of instructors. We met last week with the president of Microsoft, and I challenged him, and I said, there is a role to fulfill for companies to help build this supply chain, to have a pipeline of people from their businesses who are willing to go into the community college system and instruct as people coming from business. And I know that there are companies that do that, and we would like to create this as a whole expectation, particularly of the larger businesses that have the resources to do that, to see that they have a role to fulfill in helping to provide these instructors. And it's a win-win-win. So I appreciate that.
Senator Barker.
Yeah, just one other question. And I mean, we've done a lot of things well in Virginia. There are a lot of things we haven't done well, but we need to sort of balance that out and continue to improve. I mean, the last 3 years we've been rated best state for business, and 5 years overall over this century. Where our K through 12 education system, even though we don't pay teachers hardly anything, we're still ranked 4th in the country. Our public higher education system in the last 5 years has been ranked 1st or 2nd every single year. So we have a lot of things that are good, but what we still find is that we're often losing some of the people who go through our higher education system and then end up in New York or some other place rather than staying in Virginia. And are there sort of ideas that you have that could help retain more of those people and help them build their careers and their families here in Virginia?
Yes, that is a problem that Virginia students are not, the majority of them are not staying in Virginia when they complete their education from our remarkable institutions. And this is something that we want to turn around. And so we're exploring ways of how to do that, understanding what types of jobs are they looking for, what types of communities are they looking for. Is it housing? Is it salary? Is it quality of life? Why are they leaving? And we are working on this. There are some imaginative programs happening now. I think there's one in a rural area that the Tobacco Revitalization Commission experimented with, which was paying student loans for people to stay in certain rural areas. And which reminds me of something like the National Health Service Corps, which will do that. They'll help to pay for someone's education if they will stay and serve. I'm not suggesting that that's the way that we would go, but we do need to be more imaginative in understanding why people are leaving, why students, graduates are leaving, and how to win them back to come back, because we need that talent.
One of the prerogatives of being a subcommittee chair is you get to talk about your crazy ideas, and I have one. And but
you have only one?
Yeah, well, today. It's just today, and it's something I've sort of run by VEDP, and it gets to your point about people leaving the state. As we roll out broadband, the ability to hook into Virginia goes up dramatically for businesses and for individuals. And we try to bring in big businesses and what have you, and hope everything creates that environment that you're talking about of the growth of small business. But what if we were able to, a lot of people want to live different lifestyles now. That's one of the reasons that people are quitting their jobs. And I think that there might be folks who in the tech industry who would be willing to move to Southwest Virginia. As long as they were, half hour to 40 minutes from an airport like Tri-Cities in Tennessee. Hate to bring up another state, but in Southwest Virginia, to attract people who want to live a simpler life, who want to camp, hike, bike, fish, hunt, do those things, raise their children as maybe do some farming, maybe do whatever, but be in the tech industry because they have good access to broadband centered around a town. We were in Abingdon, here recently, which has just a wonderful place to start something like that. The question is whether the folks who are there now will accept newcomers, kind of coming in that way. But, pretty soon, if you bring in enough workers who want to live in that kind of an area and be able to get to an airport to go to that monthly visit to the home office that they may have to go on, you create an environment, you create a community. After a while, who knows, you get a Starbucks. And the idea there is that may attract business because you're starting to develop workers who are living in that area, creating that cluster. Just a way of working it from the opposite direction other than bringing in the business. Start with the people who can work there, who want to work there in that kind of an environment. And anyway, not a sermon, but just a thought.
I think that's a very good thought.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you so much. We wish you the absolute best. We are here to serve the administration and to have that kind of open communication. We're going to be hearing from Jason Elkubi and the folks at VEDP here in just a moment. But in terms of the site development, which I know they're going to be talking about, it's like what Arnold Palmer used to say about putting: never up, never in. You know, you got to make sure that the putt gets to the hole if it's going to have a chance to go in. So there are some risks that we have to take. I hope they're calculated risks and good risks. We have a lot of confidence in them, and I can see that you are off to a great start, and I want to thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been delightful to be with you. We're looking forward to working with you. And to your point, we got to take a lot of shots in order to get the points, right?
There you go.
Good.
Thank you so much, Secretary Merrick. All right. Next up, we have a presentation by our very own Virginia Economic Development Partnership. And Jason Elkubi is our new acting interim president and CEO of the partnership. And congratulations on that.
Thank you, sir.
You guys have done some amazing work, and look forward to hearing from you today what the future holds for us and what you're working on. And with that, Jason, take it away.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, and good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. It's great to be with you. This is an exciting time for us. We've been working very closely with Secretary Merrick and her team and others in the new administration to deliver a smooth transition and accelerate progress. I want to start with kind of a thank you this morning, because you and your colleagues in the General Assembly have been tremendously supportive of advancing economic development in the Commonwealth. I want to give you just a brief update on a few things that happened in FY21 in terms of new funding for economic development and the progress that's been made recently. First of all, you increased funding for site development in the last budget. We went from about $1 million a year up to about $5 million per year. So that gave us significantly more resources to accelerate progress. Recently, we announced that $7 million was being invested in 11 different sites across the Commonwealth to enhance site development. That was done strategically. I should mention to you that when we did this, we let folks know how much money was available. We got $50 million in requests altogether, 25 different full applications. If we had more money, we'd see a lot more applications. The demand out there across the Commonwealth is incredible, so I want to thank you for your interest and leadership in advancing additional dollars for site development in the current session. We'll talk more about that momentarily. In your conversation with Secretary Merrick, you were talking about this linkage between what's happening in our education space, our workforce space, and employment outcomes in Virginia. You also appropriated $5 million to create the Virginia Office of Education Economics at VDP. That's an office that works collaboratively with other partners in this space around the Commonwealth. We hired some of the best talent in America to lead this office as the executive director and the research director. What they're doing is really researching and understanding this relationship between what's happening in Virginia's education and workforce systems and what's happening in terms of the employment outcomes for these people that we're investing in, and how do we improve those linkages, making improvements, making recommendations to strengthen that relationship. You also brought up the Virginia Community College System. One of the most exciting programs that we've introduced in the last couple of years is the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program. We are ramping that up. You provided $4.7 million additional in FY21 to do that. In the introduced budget, we have an opportunity to fully ramp that program. This is a partnership between VEDP and the Virginia Community College System. And what it does is it provides a customized, comprehensive workforce and training solution. This is a service that we provide, not a cash incentive, a service. In just its first few years, it has already become recognized as the #2 workforce training program of its kind in America. Very effective for a wide range of economic development projects, both expansions of existing companies as well as new locations. Very important for securing those projects, especially in rural areas and small metros where there are concerns about finding inadequate trained workforce. You also invested $2 million in restoring the Virginia Jobs Investment Program. This is our most commonly used incentive program. It applies to a wide range of projects. Basically helps companies, helps reimburse them for the costs of their workforce training and recruitment activities to help them grow. Very popular incentive. Finally, I should mention that you began implementation of the International Trade Plan in last year's budget. This has enabled us to do a number of things. We've launched a first in its kind supply chain program that is off to a great start. We've expanded we're expanding the number of companies we're serving, helping more than 300 Virginia businesses every year export their goods and services to markets around the world. So really nice start to the implementation of the International Trade Plan with a big ROI. Let's just take a snapshot at the numbers. So, what does VEDP do in a typical year? What you're looking at right now is basically the FY21 numbers. In FY21, we announced VEDP-assisted projects that are creating nearly 12,000 new direct jobs. That's before the multiplier. That's a total of 105 projects announced in FY21. I will point out, importantly, that about 2/3 of those were expansions of existing Virginia companies. 2/3. That's very typical. 2/3 of our announcements are existing Virginia businesses. Nearly $5 billion in capital investment related to those projects. The international trade programs I just mentioned, helping 300 Virginia businesses, more than 300, export their goods and services. In a typical year, that activity helps those businesses generate more than $500 million in new international sales. That's the equivalent of thousands of Virginia jobs, supporting thousands of Virginia jobs. In this most recent year, $670 million in new international sales assisted by those programs. Let's talk a little bit about where we are in terms of recovery from COVID. So what you'll see here is basically the unemployment rate for Virginia in the United States. You can see that Virginia has outperformed the rest of the country throughout the pandemic. Big delta early on, and we've consistently been a half a point to a point below the country overall in terms of unemployment. What you're looking at here on slide 5 is basically the peak of the economic impact. So this is back in like April and May of 2020, the depth of the economic impact. Overall, we lost at that point about 10.6% of Virginia jobs. You can see that some regions like the New River Valley were really deeply affected there. We have recovered quite a bit. This is the latest analysis on slide 6. You can see that some regions, like the Eastern Shore and Southern Virginia, have fully recovered from a jobs perspective. Others are still somewhat behind. On average, right now, we have about between 4 and 5% fewer jobs in Virginia than we had immediately prior to the pandemic. And on slide 7, you're seeing something the same data presented in a different way. We're still about 120,000 jobs down relative to the pre-employment baseline, pre-pandemic employment baseline. When you look at it by sector on slide 8, the sort of the dark bars are where we are now. The lighter bars show the kind of peaks. So you can see that that all sectors have improved. You can see that the impacts, the negative impacts, were heavily concentrated in sectors like leisure and hospitality, non-essential retail, and other service. A few sectors that you see on the bottom there have already recovered and begun to grow again, including essential retail and a couple of the sort of foundational sectors like mining and logging and transportation and warehousing. A lot of activity in warehousing. Virginia, in terms of where we are relative to the rest of the country, we are lagging a little bit in our recovery. You can see that it looks like it's ticking up just a little in the last few months, but as you look at slide 9, not quite as much momentum as some of the other regions of the country, including the south region of the United States. What does the forecast look like? On slide 10, right now, Moody's Analytics, one of the leading forecasting firms in America, is projecting that Virginia is going to recover 100% of its jobs baseline about a year from now, in Q1 of 2023. Obviously a projection, but one of the best projections we could find. Slide 11 shows kind of a breakdown of how that looks from between kind of the urban crescent and the rural horseshoe. You could see that the urban crescent projected to recover at the very end of this calendar year in Q4, with the rural horseshoe expected to recover almost a full year later in the third quarter of 23. So let's talk about opportunities to accelerate growth. What are the opportunities we have to really grow jobs in Virginia? You should know that we are taking a portfolio strategy, as you'll see on slide 13. There are 14 different target sectors that VDP is focused on cultivating. This is not everything we're doing, but this is where we put a disproportionate share of our energy. In many cases, we are building on historical strengths that Virginia has, ranging from corporate headquarters and business process services to supply chain with our partners at the Port of Virginia, food and beverage processing. Senator Hanger, particularly in your region and others where that industry is very important. So a lot building on these historical strengths, but also looking at ways that we can cultivate new sectors that are likely to create a lot of jobs in the future. Things like offshore wind. You mentioned data centers earlier, life sciences, and so forth. This is important to take a portfolio approach, not only because we want to capture major pockets of job creation across the Commonwealth. This is also important because we need a job creation strategy that's relevant to every region of the Commonwealth, and not every region is the same, as you know. What you're looking at on slide 14 is an example of the big regional differences in terms of industry mix. These bars represent the new jobs that we announced over the last 5 years, broken down by sector. You can see that for many regions, particularly those in the top half of this chart, for many regions, as you look down that left-hand side, manufacturing is overwhelmingly important to these regions. For some regions, well, for one region on the Eastern Shore, manufacturing represents 100% of the jobs that we've announced in the last 5 years. In other regions, it represents the vast majority of the jobs we announced, particularly in rural and small metro regions. As you get deeper into the chart, as you go down, you'll see, a more diversified economic growth. And as you get into, Northern Virginia, Greater Richmond, Greater Fredericksburg, you see manufacturing representing, a relatively small minority share of total job growth. Corporate headquarters and corporate services, supply chain, and other sectors become much more important. So let's talk about the budget. We have a number of exciting economic development initiatives that are part of the introduced budget. There are 3 major operational budget proposals for VDP that I want to draw your attention to. One is something that you've already talked quite a lot about, and that is the Business Ready Sites program with $150 million in one-time money in the caboose budget proposed. We view that as sort of catch-up dollars, one-time catch-up dollars. As you know, Virginia has not invested as robustly in this activity for many years, and we can talk about the opportunity cost of not doing that. I'll also point out to you that that recently there have been some amendments added, I think by by you, Mr. Chairman, and also in the governor's proposed amendments to add additional site dollars to the new biennium budget, the FY 23 and 24 dollars. We're thrilled about that. We can make great use of those additional dollars. The demand there is huge. One thing I do want to point out to you, Mr. Chairman, and other members of the committee is that one of the things that we would suggest with those recurring dollars is to provide a little bit more flexibility in how we use those dollars so that we can not only deploy them in the form of grants, but also that we can use those dollars to appropriately administer these significant resources and ensure that we do a good job in deploying them, making sure that we have staff not only to do the grants, but to actually help put those sites into commerce and make good use of those investments, as you were saying, Senator Hanger and others earlier. So we believe that $150 million one-time investment will enable us to fully prepare a handful of mega sites as well as 10 to 20 mid-sized sites across the Commonwealth. You might be wondering what's the difference between a mega site and a mid-sized site. When we talk about mega sites, we're talking about sites that are 250 acres or larger. When we talk about mid-sized sites, we're talking about sites that are above the 100-acre minimum for the program up to 250 acres. So 250 acres, mega site, 100 to 250 mid-sized sites. I will say that we should consider, as you've done in your bill, Senator Marsden, special provisions for regions that have topographical challenges where it's hard to assemble 100 acres. I think that's a good idea. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, the final ramp of the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program. This is the customized workforce recruitment and training solution, this service-based model that's been very successful, that's now ranked number 2 in America in a couple of the rankings. Fully ramping this program would enable us to serve projects across the Commonwealth and kind of reach a steady state. We believe that this will help us secure projects, creating 3,000 to 6,200 additional small metro and rural jobs per year. So really important completion of that project, if you will, to build that program. Nice partnership with VCCS. And then finally, fully implementing the Virginia International Trade Plan. We currently help more than 300 businesses reach international markets. The full ramp of this plan would enable us to double that. Very important because this program is wildly popular among businesses, but it is heavily oversubscribed, and there's a lot more opportunity there. We also have a number of incentive-related requests, including restoring dollars to the COF that were diverted for other purposes over the last year or two. There's been a change on item F in the CMA CGM incentive. This works in Virginia's favor. Basically, instead of taking upfront dollars with an escrow, they're looking to be paid post performance, which is great for the Commonwealth. There's a proposal to begin putting dollars aside for the Amazon HQ2 payments. Those are not due yet, but given the size of those, there's been a proposal to begin to put those dollars aside for when the time comes in a few years down the road. And then finally, as part of the Blue Star announcement, one of the largest project announcements ever in rural Virginia in Wythe County, an incentive package to really enhance the infrastructure around Progress Park to support that and other projects that could locate in Progress Park. Also, there's a few MEI-related items that came out relatively late that Senator Ruff, you've been directly involved in, that need to be added to the budget that we're proposing. Again, adopted by MEI. One is the related to the Blue Star project. Again, basically with the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program, whenever we have kind of a mega project opportunity, Blue Star is a 2,500 job project, we're going to typically seek a special appropriation for those mega projects to support that program, so that we do not impact our ability to serve other projects around the Commonwealth. And then finally, again, with a bill that Senator Ruff has on the Senate side, Delegate Marshall on the House side, to address the corporate income tax apportionment for the CoStar project. Relatively technical detail there, but an important piece for that project. I'm sorry, I said that incorrectly. This is actually $15 million in public infrastructure improvements in the city of Richmond to support the CoStar project. Very attractive, one of the most significant projects ever announced in the greater Richmond region, 2,000 jobs, growth of a very important and attractive corporate citizen here in the city of Richmond. Let's talk in a little more detail about the case around these proposals. This slide here shows the opportunity costs that we have borne for not investing more in site development over the last several years. The lack of a project-ready site on slide 18, the lack of a project-ready site is one of the most common reasons that Virginia loses an advanced manufacturing project today, one of the most common reasons we lose a supply chain project today. This is especially acute for larger projects. Our inventory of sites larger than 100 acres is very meager, and our inventory is even more challenged when you get up into the 250 acre territory. You can see here that since 2016, Virginia has lost projects for site-related reasons that amount to 47,000 direct jobs, more than $115 billion in capital investment, hundreds of millions of dollars in estimated annual state revenue that could have been generated by these projects. And on the right-hand side, you see some examples of those. The Toyota project that came up in our conversation earlier is towards the bottom of that slide. That's a project that Virginia, in fact, Virginia originally was not even considered because the company assumed that we did not have a site. We did get into that process. Turned out the company was right. We did not have a site that suited their project. You can see that this is an area where we're really getting killed today and where we've got a lot of catching up to do. We're excited that we have the opportunity to do that. One of the things I should point out is that a couple of years ago, the General Assembly made a very wise investment in helping the Commonwealth understand its inventory of business industrial sites. We had approximately 500 sites in our database. We had relatively poor information on where those sites were in terms of their level of development and what needed to be done to get them ready. Thanks to a special appropriation from the General Assembly, we went through an extensive effort a couple of years ago to fully characterize all of those, all sites in our database that were 25 acres or more, 466 sites. The significance of this is that we have in Virginia perhaps the best intelligence on our site portfolio of any state in the country. The not so happy takeaway is what we learned, and that is that 85% of our sites that are 100 acres or larger are not project ready. And when you look at when you put a mega site lens on it and you consider the needs of mega sites, the picture is even worse. When you look at slide 20, you can see that Virginia has essentially zero mega sites that are fully project ready, which is why this catch-up funding that we were talking about earlier is so important. I also want to spend a little bit of time telling you about the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program. This program is off to a huge start. It's a new program that's already, again, the #2 program of its kind in America. What this program does in partnership with VCCS is that for a Virginia company that's expanding and creating a significant number of jobs, or a new company that's locating in Virginia creating a significant number of jobs, this program is a service-based incentive that works hand in glove with the company to design and to develop and to deliver as a service a fully customized, comprehensive workforce recruitment and training program for the company. Very, very effective. The companies that have used this, including many in your regions, are wild about it. You can see some of the kinds of services that this program delivers. On slide 22, you can see where this program has made an impact just in the first couple of years. The orange dots are those projects that are already underway. You can see that the blue dots show that we have a number of projects that are in the pipeline that would like to make use of this program as they consider a location in Virginia. Already has supported nearly 8,000 jobs currently underway or announced, another more than 3,000 jobs in the pipeline. Finally, on the international trade plan, you can see kind of a snapshot of the impact of our existing services. I mentioned that every year we help more than 300 Virginia businesses export their goods and services to other markets around the world. Again, more than $500 million in new international sales. That $670 million you see there in the most recent year helps support more than 6,000 Virginia jobs, trade-supported jobs in Virginia. We survey these companies that we serve every single year. The numbers are always very, very significant. 98% of those companies in the most recent year said they were extremely likely or likely to recommend these export assistance programs to other Virginia companies. 97% said that the quality was excellent or above average. And you can see this is just the valet program represented here. This is kind of our most intensive service. It's a 2-year program. program that these companies go through. There's a number of other programs. The main point I want to share with you here is that these programs are reaching Virginia businesses across the Commonwealth, serving every region. I'll just breeze through these, but I do want to share that the MEI Commission, as many of you know, has been hard at work over the last couple of years with a number of very exciting announcements across Virginia. I mentioned CoStar a moment ago, the Siemens Gamesa project in the Hampton Roads area, helping to build an offshore wind industry for Virginia. The Blue Star project, one of the largest manufacturing investments in a rural area in Virginia history. And the expansion and retention of CMA, CGM, not only driving growth in Hampton Roads, but also in Northern Virginia with the startup incubator and accelerator in Arlington County. There are just a few legislative proposals I want to draw your attention to. Senator Ruff, you're carrying the first one, which is the extending the sunset for the major business facilities job tax credit. You can see that this second item here is really just revising the language around the CMA, CGM incentive that I described earlier, making that a post-performance incentive, works in Virginia's favor. This third item is supporting the additional funding to the Virginia Talent Accelerator Program for the Blue Star Mega Project, ensuring that that does not impact other projects that we're trying to serve around Virginia. And then finally, Senator Barker is patroning a bill that would address this market-based sourcing issue for corporate income tax apportionment that's important to CoStar and other corporate headquarters locations. There has been some analysis on this issue. Some of you may be more familiar with it than me, but I think the basic takeaway from that analysis is that Virginia should consider offering Virginia companies a choice in how they do corporate income tax apportionment to assure that we're not out of line with other states. So I believe that's everything. I will pause, Mr. Chairman, and see if there's any questions from the committee.
Thank you so much, Jason. That was very, very thorough. We appreciate it very much. Something I've been working on with Delegate Moorfield's small project in Tazewell, the fish farm. You hearing any intel on that? How that's? I know they're moving dirt. Have they begun any kind of construction? Do you know?
A little bit. I mean, I know it's an exciting project. What I'd like to do is maybe check with our team on the latest and get you an update, if that would be okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Questions from the panel? Senator Ruff.
Mr. Chairman. Jason, the $150 million that's going to the Ready Sites program, is there any flexibility in that? You defined a mega as 250 to whatever, and the large ones from 100 to 250. Does that give you any flexibility to go down to 95 and to go to 220?
It depends on how the bill comes out around those dollars. Right now, as proposed, the bill would enable us to go down to 50 acres in Go Virginia Regions 1 and 2 in consideration of the topographical challenges there. So that's basically like Southwest Virginia, Allegheny County area. So, basically the most mountainous regions of the state. As proposed, the other Go Virginia regions of the state would have a 100-acre minimum threshold for investments. The rationale for that is that it's in those 100-acre plus sites where we really have the biggest deficiencies in our site readiness. We were also proposing, Senator Ruff, that 100 million out of that 150 one-time catch-up dollars, that 100 million would be dedicated to a handful of mega sites, with the 50 million used to support the development of roughly 10 to 20 sites that are between 100 and 250 acres, going down to 50 acres in Go Virginia Regions 1 and 2.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, on 18, you list 7 or 8 projects that we did not get. All of those would have required mega sites. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I should clarify. I mean, I'm not. I want to make sure you don't think I'm telling you that we would have won every single one
I
of these if
understand
it
that,
wasn't for
but-
sites. But we got eliminated. We were out of the game early on. We did not have a chance to compete in the later stages for these because we did not have a project-ready site option to offer.
And 4 of those were semiconductor.
Yes, sir.
And
So
what is the average pay for when you're talking about semiconductor?
I'd want to check, but it's typically north of $100,000 per year plus benefits.
You're getting a nod.
Those are great jobs. They're great jobs,
So
and
the pay is high in that industry, so.
yes, sir. It's very high. I mean, it's typically north of $100,000 per year plus benefits, and often well north of that. And when you consider, some of the regions in which these projects could locate, it would be a truly transformative, generational type investment.
And finally, if this money had been in the process a few months or a year earlier, would we have been not eliminated by one of those?
It's a great question. I think the answer is, had we put these dollars in the budget a year or 2 or 3 ago, I'd want to check on the exact timeline, because it does take some time to spend these dollars appropriately. I mean, it's not like a snap your fingers type thing. Often you have to move dirt, you have to, get utilities in place, that sort of thing. But and do studies and so forth. So it's not a snap your fingers type thing, but the answer is we would have been in a dramatically better position had we made these investments earlier, as you suggest.
If we make those, Mr. Chairman, if we make those investments now, how long will it take to get a couple of mega sites?
I think it would take basically a year or 2 to get ready. So, I mean, these are dollars that we're ready to spend quickly, but I think it's probably, a year, 18 months or so to invest these dollars and, move our sites towards site readiness. I will also say that I think, having those projects, having those development investments in motion enables us to tell a story and to show momentum, rather than say, okay, if you do this, we will start to invest. I think having an ongoing investment in those sites is going to be a very important in terms of being able to demonstrate that we're capable of delivering a site that's going to meet the project timeline. So I would say a year, maybe a little bit longer, to get those dollars out.
Thank you.
Jason, in our portfolio of sites, do you have sort of a ranking system in place to say which ones we would start to develop first, and kind of have your priority list in mind?
We do, Mr. Chairman, and part of the reason we're in a good position to do that is because of all of you. Those site characterization dollars that the General Assembly provided a couple of years ago, incredibly important. So we have great intelligence on the 466 or so sites that are larger than 25 acres. And we think about this in a couple of ways. We think about how developable is this site? Where is it in its development? But also, how much time and money is it going to take to move the site up the tier level, to get it project ready? So we understand not only where it is, but what it's going to take to get it project ready. And we want to use those dollars strategically so that we can focus on sites that take relatively modest amounts of time and money to get fully ready. We've also looked at these sites in terms of the competitiveness of the areas in which the sites are located. So we want to understand, okay, if we invest in this site, what kinds of projects is it capable of attracting? So we do have a very robust set of information and data analysis around making strategic decisions. The other thing I should say, Mr. Chairman and members, is that this is a program where localities apply for these grant dollars for site investments. It's a matching grant program. So to some degree, it's also a partnership with these localities. It always is a partnership with these localities in terms of finding places where both it's an attractive investment opportunity for the Commonwealth, but also an opportunity that the communities in which these sites are located are, where they're excited about it. And finally, I would say that we're going to structure this so that we can invest in every region of the Commonwealth. We want to ensure that we're, considering each of the Go Virginia regions, for example, in deploying these dollars. So the kind of analysis that I'm describing, we'd want to do it for the state overall for mega sites, but we would also want to do that kind of analysis within each of the Go Virginia regions so that we're deploying those dollars in a way that maximizes their impact in collaboration with our partners.
Very good. Other questions from the subcommittee?
I guess one quick question.
Certainly, Senator Hanger.
And I didn't want to seem totally negative on mega sites from my earlier comments,
Yeah.
but just to put it in perspective. But we've been ranked the last 2 or 3 years best state for business, but one of our weaker areas, it seems, is infrastructure, and I've equated that mostly to transportation infrastructure. In these ratings, is the lack of mega sites or an infrastructure to serve business, is that a part of the equation when they say infrastructure?
Yes, sir, it is. Typically, the most immediate concern around these sites from an infrastructure perspective is actually utility infrastructure. And the things you've mentioned, Senator Hager, are very important for sure, but often the most important infrastructure elements are things that, people wouldn't necessarily think about, in terms of your average citizen. Water and sewer capacity, electricity, and so forth, very, very important. In fact, in many of these cases, the sites are not served at all. Natural gas is another one, by the way. In many cases, in some of these mega sites are not served at all currently. In other cases, the capacity of the water and sewer and electricity needs to be upgraded to support these kinds of mega projects. Now, to be sure, the transportation infrastructure is also a consideration, both rail and highways. So you're definitely onto something. But I would also say that the utility infrastructure is also a huge concern here.
Jason,
Yes,
Senator Hanger, any? Okay, Jason, the former ExxonMobil site in Fairfax County across from the hospital that's been taken over, the main building for the genomics center. That campus was envisioned to attract a lot of biomedical kinds of businesses and what have you. Do you have any idea, and are you hooked into what's going on there and what you see as the potential?
A little bit, Mr. Chairman. What I'd like to do is there's people on our team who know a lot more about that particular facility and the opportunity that I do. I could give you a few general thoughts on it. I think what I would prefer is to, if it's okay with you, is to talk to our team, give you kind of a really good, up-to-date answer to that question.
That's great. Yeah, that is a very developing area in Fairfax. They have a driverless electric vehicle that is taking people from the town center there to the metro, and I think that could be extended to the hospital complex there.
I've personally worked closely with Victor Hoskins, the economic development leader for Fairfax County, and when you go back to that slide that shows some of the emerging sectors, a lot of those are things that are opportunities that we can work on in Fairfax County. Also, there's obviously similar opportunities around the state, but really excited about those and would love to have that conversation.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Other questions? Jason, thank you so much for the work that VEDP does here in the Commonwealth and for your leadership in paving the way for our future. It is we need to work on continuing to create a business environment that's friendly to workers, to people to relocate here, to attract businesses. I think more and more, as you're finding, these larger corporations are demanding more than just infrastructure and environment. They want laws and an environment that's worker friendly, and especially in the tech communities. So we appreciate the work that you're doing, and thank you very much for being here today. Anything any of us can do, please give us a call, and we'll get through this session of the General Assembly and hopefully improve Virginia's business potential. And thank you for the work that you do.
Mr. Chairman and members, thanks for the opportunity to visit this morning. Just building on your comments, I will say that you guys have all been champions of this work, and I want to thank you for that. You've seen how your partnership in this is just so critically important. So I'm grateful for it, and just look forward to working with you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, to make progress as we go forward.
Thank you, and thank your team for being here today.
Yes, sir.
With that, the committee will rise.